Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're just going to give it just a few more moments for people to pour into the conversation with us today. Um, I'm looking forward to this conversation. We have some incredible speakers. So while everybody's coming in, let us know where you're calling from in the chat, right? Like, let us know where you're tuning in from. Drop, your location, who you are. Tell us about yourself. And also, please feel free to use this chat to be able to drop in questions as you are hearing from these incredible speakers. You may have questions. Put them in the chat, and my goal is to be able to get to these questions for them in our Q&A session. I see people already chiming in. Welcome, Michelle. Welcome, Deborah. Welcome, Emmett, Jim, Mary. Again, thank you all for joining us today. I think that, how about we just go ahead and get started, right? It feels like we have an incredible amount of people showing up. Welcome, Alan, Amando, Melissa. Yes. Looks like we have people tuning in from all over the country today. Well, how about we get started? My name is Stefan Coward, and I am happy to be able to lead this conversation with some incredible speakers of talking about banking for good. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about. You may be able to see that energy radiate off of me today, but I think this is an incredibly important conversation to be able to discuss today. And so again, I want you to use this chat to be able to tell us where you're calling in from, put questions in the chat, and the goal is after we come hear from our speakers, we're going to have a portion of time dedicated to Q&A. So feel free to be able to again ask your questions in the chat. And so with that, let's kick it to the first slide. So as you can see, we have some dynamic speakers. We have people who are going to be speaking from Beneficial State Bank, Self-Help Federal Credit Union, Adelphi Bank in Green America, along with myself. So you see these dynamic speakers here today that I know that you'll be happy to hear from. And so with that, let's kick it to the next portion. I'll introduce myself once again. My name is Stefan Coward. I am the Economic Justice Director here at Hip Hop Caucus. I've been in the banking industry for the last 20 years. I spent the last 10 of those years saying that I think that I can be able to have an impact of helping banks, us having a banking system that chooses the good. And so I have from there, I have been able to work with a lot of different people and saying, like, how do we change banking for better? Which led me to the Hip Hop Caucus. And at the Hip Hop Caucus, I am the Economic Justice Director, as you see. I lead a campaign called Bank Black and Green. And the purpose is to be able to build the good. How do we rally the community to make better banking decisions and putting our money into institutions who align with our values to build the good, to help community, to expand access to capital, to be able so we can be able to see the so we can create the change that we want to see. And so that is who I am and what I talk about through our Bank Black and Green campaign. And towards the end, we'll make sure that we share some links if you want to be a part of this goal that we all have here to be able to change banking for good. We'll make sure that you have some resources at the end of the conversation to be able to do so. Um, and with that, let's move to the let's dig in. So, as you see, we have our agenda here. What we're going to be able to talk about today is like we're going to walk through Green America's Getting a Better Bank Map. We want you to be able to see the options that you have across this country to make better banking decisions. We're going to dig into a fantastic conversation to where we hear from Beneficial State Bank and talking about the work that they are doing to be able to change banking for good. We're going to dig into a conversation with Self-Help Federal Credit Union and Adelphi Bank. And you're going to be really excited about those conversations. So this is our agenda. And again, after we hear from these speakers, we'll dig into some Q&A. So make sure that you have your questions ready, because we want to be able to hear from you, to be able you to walk away from this conversation with actionable steps that you can take, feeling inspired about what is out there. And so with that, let's let's begin. I want to be able to welcome Kathy Becker. She is a responsible finance campaign director from Green America. Kathy, welcome to the conversation. How about we just start? Let's start. Tell us about Green America and the Get a Better Bank Map.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefan, and thank you for facilitating this webinar. As this says, I'm the Responsible Finance Campaign Director at Green America, so I deal with a whole range of issues: banking, credit cards, property insurance, socially responsible investing. But one of our premier tools that we just launched earlier this year, is our new Get a Better Bank Map. And so that's what the homepage looks like, the top of the homepage. And so I'm going to tell you about that. Let's move to the next slide. So as background, and this is very simplified for the true bankers here, this is very simplified, but just in general, how do banks work? How do they actually make money for themselves while providing banking services? So if you put your money into a savings account in a bank, well, the bank can use that money, or based on the amount of money they have in deposits, they can use that money to lend to other people and businesses. And then those people and businesses pay back the bank loan. They pay back that loan with interest for borrowing the money. And then the bank pays you a little bit of interest for the privilege of using your money for this purpose. But they're not paying you as much interest, quite as much as they're making from the interest of the loans that they give. And so that's how banks have enough money to pay staff and provide these services. So that background is important to know in terms of why your money makes a difference in a bank. Because once that money is in there, that bank can loan it to whoever they want. And you're out of the picture at that point. You put your money there, they can loan it to something that aligns with your values, or possibly not. So next slide, please. So there's a whole range of banks in this country. There's what we call mega banks, which are the household name banks that are everywhere. The really big banks, these are like your JP Morgan Chases, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and there's about 10 of them that are listed in the top 65 banks in the Banking on Climate Chaos report. And that report was done by about a dozen environmental advocacy organizations, tracing the financing of the loans made by those banks. And what they have found, and they've been issuing this report every year for many years, is that these top 65 banks, and these are worldwide, but 10 of them are American banks, have collectively lent almost $8 trillion to the fossil fuel industry. So if we're specifically talking about climate change, this is since the Paris Agreement, since the agreement to hold global warming to 1.5 degrees. And about 1/3 of that amount has come from the American banks. They're actually among the top. If you look at that list, the top 3 are American, and then number 5 is American, and they're all pretty high up on that list. And so what this means, there's a number of groups that have calculated the carbon impact of that. So Project Drawdown says that if you have $1,000 in savings at one of these banks, that's equal to the emissions of flying from New York City to Seattle every year. There's another one from Bill McKibben and Kat Taylor, one of the founders of Beneficial, that talks about if you have $62,500 in savings, that's like all the cooking, heating, traveling, everything that an individual does that creates carbon emissions for 6 months is tied up because of how that money is being lent. Then we contrast that to the local banks and credit unions, your mission-driven ones that are not necessarily household names, but they're not making that kind of lending. The lending they're doing is to build wealth in their own communities, to build the quality of life in their own communities. So it's things like small businesses, or affordable housing, or mortgages for regular people, or affordable housing units, or social services such as senior centers, or local environmental works like parks. So these are things like, featured here in this webinar, our community development financial institutions. That is their mission, is to wealth build in their communities. It's in their name. And also minority depository institutions. So these are, your minority owned banks and credit unions. There are only 20 Black owned banks in this country, and you're going to hear from one of them today. Next slide. So I'm not going to unshare slides to go to the Get a Better Bank map, but you can do that yourself. It's at getabetterbank.org. So this lists over 17,000 locations nationwide of over 3,000 of these mission-driven institutions. So this is a way to find a bank or credit union in your community. Hopefully there's probably at least a dozen in my community, and hopefully there's a lot in your communities. And so this listing is, we did not vet every single one of these banks and credit unions on our own at Green America. We just didn't have the capacity for this. So we relied on trusted partners such as the CDFI. That's a government agency. These are, government designated community development financial institutions. And the same with minority depository institutions. Those are designated by the NCUA and the FDIC. NCUA also has a low income credit union designation. So what they're doing is building low income communities. We also took B Corp banks, membership in an organization called Inclusive, which is Community Development Credit Unions, the Global Alliance on Banking on Values, and then of course Green America's own Green Business Network, which has a certification procedure. So you can see what, once you do that search, you just go to find to do that search. There's a lot of other information on the bank map, such as, why to switch and how to make the switch. We have 10 steps for making the switch. You can find that there. But the other graphic on here is what one of the pages for one of these banks looks like. So I picked Adelphi Bank. There's usually a little blurb about the bank and its logo, the address, and then any like ownership information. So you can see it is a Black owned bank. You can find its website, and you can see the memberships and certifications it has that landed it on our bank map. So in this case, it's a minority depository union. Green America also has a banking pledge, a kind of align your money with your values pledge. And so we'll put that in the chat later on towards the end of this webinar. And so next slide, please. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Kathy. And we already have some questions that are pulling in. I'm making sure that I'm capturing them. And for the Q&A session, what I'd love to do is to be able to bring Manny and Victor to the stage from Beneficial State Bank. We'd love to hear from them and the work that they are doing to help us make better banking decisions. And with that, I'll pass it to you both.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Kathy, and Green America. Thank you. And most importantly, thank you to all attendees for taking the time of being here and listening to what we have to say. It's incredible work and an important mission. And good morning and good afternoon. I know some of us are on the West Coast, more on the East Coast. Um, it was alluded by Kathy a little bit, but I believe a better banking starts with the structuring, the people behind the homepage of the bank websites that, in this digital banking world, of the bank websites that you visit. I want to start us off with our vision and mission of Beneficial State Banks. You could get a little taste into why we're here and why we do what we do. So our vision, our target future, an economy that restores our planet and extends prosperity to all. Our mission, what we do every day to get there. We practice beneficial banking in harmony with nature to help more people and help people more. So that's our vision and mission. And on the structuring part, Beneficial State Bank is a for-profit FDIC regulated bank owned and governed by a nonprofit of the same name, Beneficial State Foundation, which is our majority owner for the bank. And with that structure, which is, it's uncommon. Usually the for-profit is on top of the nonprofit. In this case, is the other way around. Why it's that way is because we as a for-profit, we have to follow the bylaws set by the foundation, meaning we cannot deviate from our mission, from our better banking practices, and we're able to put forward certain services that are more cost efficient or better resources for small business, mid-size, retail banking. Not only that, but we're able to set certain parameters to our for-profit banking side. For example, we're a certified B Corp as well, which goes and forth with our triple bottom line approach to banking. Beneficial State Bank is committed to the people, the planet, the prosperity for all type of banking. We're also a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. Um, and going back to B Corp a little bit, B Corp is not a PBC or a benefit corporation. It's a third-party audit that goes into a for-profit business and assesses what they're doing. And because we're a B Corp, we also have to put a transparent impact report year over year that you can go in and into the public website and see it for yourself and see what we're doing. One of my favorite things that I love about this bank is that we also have on the environmental side is that we have a no harm banking model, which allows us to do a fossil fuel free lending uh, practice. So we're 75%, at least 75% of our loans are mission targeted, where 0% of our dollars in lending go to anything that's contra mission to our no harm banking models. So at the end of the day, we are a full and through ethical bank from the ground up. We were formed in 2007, as you can see by Kat Taylor and Tom Steyer, great folks that focus on the environment. We're about 1.9 billion in assets to date. I believe we've acquired anywhere from 4 to 5 banks since inception, but without derailing the mission. Before I'll do a last comment before I pass it on to Victor. We were the first bank in the last 40 years to be unionized, to be part of the union, the CWA, and then I believe a big bank name after that a couple of years followed. So our motto is to change the banking system for good, and we're doing that through natural growth without profit maximization while still keeping the lights on. You know, we're still a for-profit business on the bank side, so we have to make sure we manage everything on that side and keeping our initiatives moving forward. Victor, I'll pass it on to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Manny, for your overview, and a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. Thank you, Kathy and Stefan, for an invitation and for hosting this much needed discussion. So yes, my name is Victor Ramirez, and I have the pleasure of being part of the Impact Communications and Marketing team at Beneficial State Bank. I oversee various impact programs that have some acronyms, and so I'll explain some of those acronyms in a moment. But we primarily are focused on benefiting underserved, underrepresented communities through our CRA, which stands for Community Reinvestment Act program. I also oversee our ESIP, or our Emergency Capital Investment Program, and our CDFI. You heard a reference to it earlier before, which stands for our Community Development Financial Institution Program. And so I make sure that we are investing our capital, our financial capital, but also our human capital, making sure that we're investing our time back into our community in the form of volunteerism, in the form of expertise, technical assistance, making sure that we're supporting and providing and meeting the needs of the community for access to capital, and that we're also giving back, right? We're reinvesting our profits back into the community in the form of community investments and also grants. And so that's some of the work that I focus on here at the bank. Next slide, please, if you don't mind, because I wanted to tell a little bit more about what actually is driving our work, because of our commitment to the community. That's actually something that drove me and attracted me to come to work for Beneficial State Bank. I used to work for one of those large, big banks that Kathy had mentioned before. Some of our staff members also had worked in those larger banks, but we see that we were able to, I think, make a larger impact in a smaller, large bank. We're still considered a large bank because of our asset size being $1.9 billion, but we feel that we could actually make a larger impact. One of the things that attracted me from the beginning was our focus on having a triple bottom line impact into the community, focused on people, planet, and prosperity for all. And that's what really is driving a lot of our work. To help us realize this impact, we developed a new mission framework in 2024 under the leadership of our Chief Impact Officer, Tara Nielsen, who is also on the call today. And this mission impact actually, or mission framework, is serving as our North Star with guiding principles and also making sure that we have measurable criteria to make sure that we're meeting that impact and to try to measure, the difference that we're making into the community. As you can see here from this slide, our new mission framework consists of 6 pillars, which include 3 pillars that are in the orange and yellow areas. They represent what we do, including uniting for economic mobility, regenerating the environment, and building a better banking system. There's also 3 additional pillars in the blue and green region at the bottom of the graphic, and that provides our commitments, our values of why we're doing it and how we're doing it, which includes equity, inclusion, and belonging, engagement and agency, accountability and integrity. And so this mission framework overall guides our programs, our internal goals. It also guides our portfolio composition. As Manny had mentioned before, we focus on industries that help the community, not do any harm. And so our portfolio minimizes any or has no industry investments activities that harm any of our communities or the planet. And so this mission framework helps us also focus on reporting. What data we're going to be collecting and how we're going to report it back to the community for accountability purposes. So next slide, please. So to provide you some examples of our impact lending activities that align with our triple bottom line mission, our commitment to the planet and especially regenerating the environment includes our green lending program. Since 2007, we've made over $166 million in renewable energy loans. And that includes both residential and commercial solar, small farm biogas, digesters, wind, and hydroelectric financing. In 2019, we started to strategically focus on increasing our environmental lending so that we could expand our residential and commercial solar lending. And now we actually even have a specialized team on staff that's really just focused on renewable and environmental lending. Some of our clients include residential homeowners for solar installations, environmental advocates, eco-friendly producers, green building professionals, conservation groups, and other similarly aligned organizations. So next slide, please. Housing affordability still remains a high priority across the nation, and especially within our blueprint, where the bank has financial centers branches, especially around San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles areas, all which are some of the nation's most expensive areas to live in. So each year, we also conduct a community needs assessment, a survey throughout all of our markets, and we're trying to identify what are the greatest needs in the community. And of course, affordable housing is also always a top critical need. But as a CDFI, we are uniquely positioned to be able to provide flexible, patient capital to help support affordable financing for housing developers. And this allows for the development and also the rehabilitation of multifamily housing. And you can see here from this slide that since in 2024 alone, we had $150 million in outstanding loans, which supported 657 total affordable units. 84% of those are deed restricted, specifically to support low to moderate income individuals. And from the bank's inception, we have financed over 17,000 units of affordable housing as of the end of 2024. So collecting this data and this impact is very, very important for us as a bank with a mission, so that we could tell the story of the difference that we're making to the community. And last slide, next slide, please. But also as a commercial lender, we have a strong focus on supporting small businesses in the community, since these are a critical source of job creation for low to moderate income individuals, and also within low to moderate income areas. We've seen that access to capital is still a barrier for minority-owned businesses who still face high denial rates and higher interest rates. Even though they have strong credit histories, they still have income and high business performance. And so we're trying to address some of these differences. In 2024 alone, we provided over $18 million in loans to small businesses. We're also a small business lender, an SBA lender, and we offer SBA 504 and 7A loans. providing access to capital to small businesses who want to acquire their own commercial properties. So instead of working for the landlords, paying rent, part of our goals is to make sure that business owners have access to capital to purchase their own commercial properties. And here's a great example on this slide of one of our business owners who have been able to finance the purchase of their own commercial property. This is Lucy De Leon. She's the owner of Salsa Locas in Portland, Oregon. Because of the rising rents in her area, it was really impacting her profitability in her business. And so we were able to help her to finance the purchase of her own commercial property. And she was able to see her payments actually go in half because now she was a property owner. And so this helped create and retain jobs in her business for low to moderate income individuals. And so it's a very critical piece that we also try to collect information on how many jobs are being created as a result of this lending for low to moderate income individuals and also within these LMI areas. So these are just a few examples of the impact that our lending is making in the communities, and we will be more than happy to entertain additional questions during the Q&A session. So back to you, Stefan.
Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you, Victor. I'll add one more thing to close this portion out for Beneficial State Bank. We know that our mission framework and why we're here, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have good set of products and offerings to offer you as a consumer, especially after the pandemic. Banks went fully digital for the most part, and that's been a need for our retail and commercial clients. So we do offer full retail commercial banking services, which includes treasury services, online wires, online ACHs, sole control, dual control, MFA. We do offer Zelle both on the consumer and business side, and cost efficient products for both the retail and the small business side of things, whether there's DDAs, money markets, and so forth. On the lending side, affordable housing has been a strong initiative for us lately, but as Victor mentioned, SBA, conventional revolving lines of credit, term loans. We have most of it all. So feel free to inquire and ask questions. I say there's no bad questions, and as day-to-day bankers, we're also connectors. So if we're not able to answer something for you, we more than likely know someone that can. So by all means, always feel free to reach out to us.
No,
Thank you.
I appreciate that clarity. And again, keep the questions coming. We have a lot of questions that we're going to answer during the Q&A session. We have 119 people who are here. So that's how we know that people are incredibly interested in this conversation. And so with that, I would love to be able to bring our next speaker to the stage, Kimberly Jones, the Vice President and Director of Partnerships and Community Engagement at Self-Help Federal Credit Union. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. Good morning or afternoon to everyone. Like Stefan said, I'm Kimberly Jones. I hail from the south side of Chicago, and I'm really excited to be here representing Self-Help, where we focus on delivering responsible, affordable financial products while advocating for policies that expand economic opportunity and strengthen our communities. So next slide. Next slide. Okay. So our mission is really simple. Our goal is to create and protect ownership and economic opportunity for everyone, especially people of color, women, rural residents, and low wealth families and communities. Next slide. Self-Help was actually started in 1980 with a humble bake sale of $77 to support African-American workers facing economic displacement in North Carolina. During this period, many of the region's industries were leaving or shutting down, creating a void in job opportunities and financial services for local communities. So Self-Help focused on helping these workers from worker-owned co-ops to take control of their economic futures. And this approach combined financial services with community empowerment, laying the foundation for our long-term impact. Next slide, please. Today, the self-help family includes 2 credit unions, a loan fund, a policy and advocacy organization that's all working together to provide financial services, capital, and systemic change. I also want to point out self-help is also a community development financial institution, or CDFI, as well as a minority depository institution, or MDI. Next slide, please. So we really work all across the United States. So you'll see from this map that we offer a nationwide affordable home loan program, which serves about 56,000 home buyers with flexible underwriting, 0 down payment options, or no PMI, and alternative credit acceptance. The credit union also provides commercial lending to small businesses, nonprofits, childcare centers, schools, and affordable housing projects across 18 states, supporting community development and economic opportunity. We also have about 9 branches. We also have several retail branches in 9 states, including Connecticut, which just joined us. We have a branch now in Connecticut that just merged with the credit union this summer in June to help us expand our physical presence. Next slide, please. So here are a few of our key areas of focus. We want to deliver excellent financial services while also scaling sustainably, expanding our geographic and our community footprint. And so our goal is to help members grow financial capabilities and to increase our lending to low to moderate income borrowers and pilot solutions that meet community needs. Our goal is to keep growing our lending, especially for first-time home buyers, small businesses, and green projects, while strengthening our secondary market and our indirect lending. Through authentic engagement and national advocacy, we hope to advance systemic change, combat predatory lending, and promote a more equitable economy. Next slide, please. So we believe that home ownership is the most powerful tool for long-term wealth, but it must be equitable. So to expand this access, we offer a new mortgage project called Equity Boost that helps first-time buyers with down payment assistance, helps lower their interest rates, and another product that we call SAFE, which is an emergency savings account that's linked to their mortgage. The Equity Boost provides anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 in down payment assistance and closing cost assistance. It addresses savings and debt barriers that often block aspiring homeowners. And after 3 years, we found that the SAFE funds actually become the borrowers, and they can use those funds for, emergencies. Let's say your water heater goes out, you can't call the landlord anymore. You're the landlord. So we want to make sure that people are not only able to purchase homes, but also can stay in their homes. Next slide, please. To date, we've provided $88 million in commercial loans supporting nonprofits, faith-based, since 2023, or in 2023, we provided $88 million in commercial loans, supporting nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and healthy food vendors. And with 30 years as an SBA lender, we've had 30 years as an SBA lender, and we also provided over $183 million in PPP loans during the pandemic. We've redesigned our 504 lending now to help increase access and flexibility for small businesses. And we're looking to pilot this program in North Carolina and expand it in our Chicago and West Coast markets. Next slide, please. Many of the communities that we are in face disproportionate impacts from climate change, pollution, and related economic and health challenges. So our energy lending helps lower utility, fuel, and maintenance costs while creating cleaner air and healthier homes. And to date, we've deployed over $400 million in green lending, and this includes utility scale solar and consumer energy loans. And we've supported over 225 energy efficient affordable housing units. Some of our key programs include our energy saving loan for home upgrades. And we're also doing what we're calling our branch greening. So we're making sure that our branches are also more energy efficient and using solar. Next slide, please. So we serve about 200,000 members directly, which makes us one of the largest CDFIs in the country. But I'll be the first to say we're never going to reach everyone who needs our services through our branches or our programs. And that's where CRL, which is the Center for Responsible Lending, comes in. So CRL takes what we see on the ground every day, our members' experiences, their barriers, and turns it into action at the national level. We're able to shape policies, push for stronger consumer protections, and help create systemic changes that impacts millions of families, not just the ones who bank with us. So even though our member base is large, CRL allows us to scale our mission and have more deeper impact than we would just through our branches alone. Next slide, please. So how can you partner with us? So individuals and institutions can support self-help in several ways. One, by opening what we call a mission supportive deposit, such as a CD or a money market, which provides safe returns while funding affordable home loans for families and small businesses. By offering grants that strengthen our programs and operations, by making loans or what we call program-related investments or PRIs that provide flexible capital for housing, entrepreneurship, and capital development, and just by becoming a community partner that helps us expand our outreach and advocacy. Next slide, please. So organizations are choosing mission-supported deposits at self-help credit union to put their cash to work in historically underserved communities. And so we can go to the next slide. And so you'll see just a sample of some of the partners that we've had who placed what we call mission supportive deposits with us. Next slide. So in terms of grants, we seek funding in areas, like I said, to expand our impact. So capital grants help us reach more borrowers and support our small businesses of color. Operating grants help cover the costs of making and servicing very small loans. Innovation grants help us fund new products and projects to achieve sustainability. And then policy grants help support our research and advocacy at CRL. Next slide, please. So at Self-Help, we pride ourselves on offering highly competitive interest rates, typically benchmarked to the 90th percentile of our current market rates. This ensures that investors receive strong returns while also aligning their mission with their banking. And we really focus on kind of long-term relationships versus sort of kind of short-term rate chasers. And so this balance between competitiveness and mission allows us to grow our resources for our investors and the communities we serve. Next slide, please. So, as I said, we leverage program-related investments, secondary capital to bring flexible mission-aligned funding to the communities we serve. And I also just want to note that Self-Help maintains a conservative 12.5 net worth ratio. And so every dollar of capital that we bring in allows us to take in $7 of deposits, resulting in about $8 of community investment. Next slide. And so that pretty much concludes my portion, but I do want to kind of leave you with three takeaways. And I think, all of my banking partners on the call will agree that deposits really help us drive impact, right? So when you bank with Self-Help or Beneficial or Adelphi, these deposits aren't sitting idle, fueling industries misaligned with our values and your values. They're actively investing in the communities that you care about. Two, Self-Help has decades of experience as a CDFI, and we intentionally focus capital in low-income communities of color, immigrants, and entrepreneurs who've typically been excluded from mainstream finance. And then lastly, as a credit union, we are a cooperative. We don't serve shareholders, we serve our members. So our profits are invested to provide better rates, services, and programs, making Self-Help a natural fit for people who are looking to, have their money do good. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm loving this conversation, and I'm loving the questions that are coming into the chat. As you ask your questions, feel free to be able to share who you want this question to be asked to as well. And with that, I want to bring Kevin to the stage to talk about the work that he is doing. Kevin Boyce is the founder and vice chairman of Adelphi Bank, and the work that they're doing is incredible. And so with that, I want to pass the mic.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. One, I want to thank everyone for joining us on the call today. Thank you for joining a conversation with the Hip Hop Caucus, but moreover, a conversation about mission-based banking. I'm Kevin Boyce, the founder and vice chairman of Adelphi Bank, America's newest minority depository institution. And I think it would be fitting to share with you the story of Adelphi. You can please take the picture of me off of the screen and go to the first slide. I'm getting tired of looking at. Thank you. That's very much better. Let me share with you the story about Adelphi Bank and how it was founded. I'll take you back to the spring of 2020 and what was happening in America. The first cases of COVID had just hit about a month earlier, and there was a gentleman by the name of George Floyd who tragically passed away at the hands of Minneapolis law enforcement. Communities all across America begin to.
Stop.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Communities all across America begin to protest and demonstrate their concern for relationships with law enforcement and particularly minority communities. And in Central Ohio, in Columbus, I'm also an elected official, and I was there with our Congresswoman and the president of Columbus City Council to encourage a peaceful protest in the broader discussion when a melee broke out and myself, the Congresswoman, and the president of City Council were pepper sprayed by the Columbus Police Department. It made national news and began a conversation all over the country. For me, that evening, I came home and I was talking to a business partner of mine on the phone as I was trying to get the pepper spray out of my hair and out of my skin. And he's a physician, by the way, not African American. And he got frustrated. He said, why are we still having these conversations in America? We've had so much progress. And what else do we need to do? And I said, we need to focus on economic mobility. We need to begin to empower not just people, but whole communities for home ownership, for college savings, for investment opportunities, for better retirement scenarios. And I said, we need more Black-owned banking institutions. And he said to me, well, why don't you start a bank? And I said, let me call you back. And I got online and I typed, how do you start a bank? And I learned two things. One, that banking is the second most regulated industry on the globe. And two, it's very expensive to start a bank. But we immediately began the process of developing Adelphi Bank, quickly put together a team, invested my own capital, and started the process. There's obviously a much longer story, but started the process to become a bank. So in January of 2023, Adelphi Bank, which by the way is Greek, Adelphi is Greek for brother, so think Brothers Bank, but Adelphi Bank received our charter license in January of 2023. So just a little under 3 short years later, we became a chartered banking institution. Today, we have 25 employees. We are right at about $80+ million in assets. Recently, Business First magazine in Columbus dubbed us as the fastest growing bank in Central Ohio. That's saying a lot because there are a lot of banks in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. And so we've had the largest amount of growth in the last year or so, and we'll be celebrating year 3 here very shortly. On the screen here, it says May of 23 for our opening. Even though we received our charter in January of 23, we were working out kinks with security, working out kinks with technology, still testing and hiring employees. And so we didn't actually fully open our doors until May. So that's kind of our actual start date, even though we were chartered in January of May of 23. And we provide everything from checkings, savings, CDs, auto loans, credit cards, merchant services, commercial business, very typical day-to-day banking resources. But in addition to that, We have a very robust and, quite frankly, in high demand financial literacy component where we can give our customers a login to where they can be a part of a self-directed financial literacy program that has quite a bit of depth on it, that helps them do everything from learn about budgeting to practicing different scenarios with finances, et cetera, et cetera. Go to the next. One thing I will point out is we were able to recruit a very, what I think is robust executive team that brings over 185 years of banking experience. And so even though we're a new bank, we have very highly skilled executives that have helped to guide not only our banking policy, but our resources. Next page. I'd probably zero in on three things that make us unique and special. This conversation about mega banks versus mission-based banks. At the end of the day, ultimately, we take in deposits, all of us, we all take in deposits and we make loans. In between that are a variety of resources and banking services that generally seek to serve a certain need. For us, for Adelphi Bank, we tried to really zero in on the things that strengthen communities. How do people who are in unbanked communities, where do they struggle or where they challenge the most? And one of the areas we identified was transportation. How many times has a customer walked in and they have a car loan at a buy here, pay here lot? In many cases, at buy here, pay here lots, they're paying 28, 29, 30% interest, which makes the payment almost twice that of the market rate. So our transportation program will take that loan, and certainly the car has to be a certain year and a certain condition, but we're able to refinance that at regular market rates. So say in today's economy, about 9 or 10%, which can reduce in many cases their payment by a third or half, and even in some cases. And so we look at ways that allows them to put that money back into their own pocket. And then we try to guide them on maybe other ways to utilize that savings for the bigger picture. Maybe a CD, maybe a savings account. The other one is the Adelphi Business Plus program. Why I like this program is because this allows even startup businesses to walk in for a loan and look at and present their business plan and to look at Adelphi as a partner in developing their own institution. Just across the street from the bank, my office is on this side of the street. Across is another development. There are at least 3 businesses that we have already have relationships with, and they've either expanded, started their business, or are in the process of making a transaction where we've been able to be a conduit to facilitating their own business development and growth. And then finally, as I talked about the financial education program, even small businesses have financial literacy and educational needs that we find that most of our customers that element is new to them. And the easier you make it, the more chance they have at creating a sustainable business model that allows them to deliver the service or product the best they can and not worry about the X's and O's of accounting or bank statements and whatnot. And then finally, go to the last slide there. I'll just do a quick introduction of our team. As I said, we've got over 185 years of experience. This here is our board. So I'm the founder, but my other 2 partners in the founder is a guy named Jordan Miller, who I recruited. He was the Fifth Third Bank president here in Central Ohio for quite some time and retired. And I asked him to join me in the venture as we were developing the model. And so he's been my business partner all along the way and really sort of our intellectual leader at how banking, the best way that we can deliver banking services and products. And then to the other side of me is the physician who I said was my business partner, who kind of challenged me to respond to this George Floyd protest and this economic mobility conversation. But that bottom row is the folks that make up the rest of our board. Larry James was a partner at a major law firm here. Alex Shoemate, the same. Greta Russell, the next lady, she was the comptroller at the Ohio State University for many, many years. The guy next to her is Michael Coleman. He was longtime mayor, longest serving mayor of the city of Columbus. And then beside him is Melissa Ingersoll, who was the Key Bank president here in the Columbus market. Let me just finally say this. Someone asked in the chat, you guys, that's my last slide, but someone asked in the chat, what's the difference between the mega banks and the mission-based banks? I think a lot's been said about how mission-based banks are rooted in the community, really tried to drive programs and resources that strengthen and empower community. But the area that I think that stand out to me mostly is, many times when you walk into a bank and there are many banks that we work closely with. So I don't want to diminish those mega banks. Some of them we have really good relationships to deploy capital, but many of the times you walk in and the way the process works is you are basically a bunch of information is punched into a computer, and it basically will give you the score for underwriting, and that determines whether or not the banking relationship can begin. We don't do that. When you walk in, Victor, you'd walk in as Victor. Manny, you'd walk in as Manny. Kimberly, you walk in as Kimberly, et cetera, et cetera. And we would look at you as an individual and analyze your entire financial picture and make a decision based on that. And that's a big difference. I can't tell you how many folks we've had to go to credit committee and really sit down with them and talk through the right underwriting scenario, the right way to look at it, so that we can do the relationship, and it's worked out. And our general model when they do come in through our doors is it's never a no, but how. Let's figure out the way how we can get you where you need to be. You come in and you want to purchase your first time home, but you've got a 510 credit score. Well, let's talk about that. It's not just a no and we send you on your way. It's all right, let's figure out how to get you to 600 or 605 or 610 or whatever it needs to be. And let's walk that pathway with you so that we can get you there. The second thing that I would maybe point out is we're nimble. Mission-based banks, and I've heard each of the folks who presented today talk about this in different words, but I think this applies in general to mission-based banks. We're nimble in that when you walk through those doors, not only can you might end up talking to the founder of the bank, and we can analyze your credit need based on the criteria that you present. But oftentimes we can create products that are tailored and geared to that community. Each one of the presenters today, in one shape or another, talked about products that they've uniquely developed that they do for that community. And I think that's what you get in mission-based banks. They're your neighbors. They are your, and I don't mean just corporate neighbors or even geographic neighbors. It's neighbors helping neighbors, and that's how we all approach the job. We know the needs of the community, and we build products based on that need. And embedded in that is this idea that for-profits will take that money and do certain things. But I think everyone's demonstrated how that money is then reinvested, recycled in the community so that we do things that really move the needle in the conversation. At the end of the day, we want more customers so that we can do and have more impact in the neighborhoods and communities that we serve. And that's the underlying mission of Adelphi Bank. When we became that 20th owned bank in America, that 20th MDI in America, one thing was clear and two things were certain, that we knew that we had a responsibility to deliver the type of banking services that can have serious impact. And we don't take that lightly. All of us are members of this community. All of us go to church, go to the grocery store, go to the library, you name it, and people will stop you and they'll ask you and they'll challenge you on things. And we're working closer with the Black churches, and we hear all the time about their history in banking relations. And so we definitely feel the obligation and the burden of what it means to erase those barriers and to be a platform or a conduit to progress. And I think that's a constant part of our conversation, a constant part of our platform. There isn't anything that we do or have done where that is not a part of the equation. And I think that's the simple difference. Looking forward to the questions and the engagement, and we're excited to be in our second year, going rounding up to our third year, and making the progress that we are. And it's really because of the partnership with the community.
Thank you for that. With that, we're moving to the Q&A session. There's an incredible amount of questions in here. So we got about 15 minutes to be able to get through as many questions as possible. And so what I like to be able to do is I'm going to pose some questions that I'm seeing through the chat. I'm going to try to get to as many as possible. And so, Kathy, and we can take the slides down if you like, and we can just have like a conversation if that works for everybody. And so, Kathy, first question to you, right? Most people choose their banks based on convenience, and you were talking about the get a better banking map, and shows that there's over like 17,000 locations. Like, what's the real difference between putting your money in a big bank versus one of these community institutions?
Yeah, well, I think Kevin covered that last bit really well. You put your money in a bank in your community, and these are community members in your community, and that is their mission, is to serve their communities. I think one of the questions in the chat is what constitutes a mission-driven bank. We're kind of using that as a catch-all phrase for different types of community development banks or minority depository institutions. But these are banks that it's part of their mission to serve their communities, whether they have a B Corp designation, or they're a member of Global Alliance on Banking on Values, or they're a community development credit union or bank, or minority depository. That's their mission, is to serve their communities. And so the really big banks, they have their place. You take a bank like, say, Chase or Citibank. They're a Wall Street bank, and who they serve are huge Wall Street corporations that have very complex banking needs. Often they're operating, their customers are operating internationally, and there's all kinds of laws. And, most of us don't need that. Most of us live in a community, and that's what we want to support with our dollars, with our banking dollars. So I hope that answers. And just as far as the bank map goes, so I'll just say the previous version, when I got here of the Get a Better Bank Map, it was on Google Maps, and there was one in my area. And I said, no, we have to redo this. And so we redid this, and part of what helped is there are a lot more community development financial institutions now, a lot more CDFIs than when we created this 8 years ago. So that expanded the choices. And we also added some more criteria. And just to answer a couple of the questions that I saw in the chat about the bank map. So this is not a comprehensive listing of every good bank and credit union in the country. I'm a staff of one for all finance campaigns at Green America. So we relied on, partners such as community development, financial institutions, minority depository institutions. We said, okay, if you have one of these 7 certificates or memberships, that lands you on the bank map. That doesn't mean that there are other banks and credit unions in your area that are also very good. So just, understand that when you use the bank map.
Yeah, and Kimberly, feel free to chime in. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to add that we're all mission focused and mission driven, but also as CDFIs, we are actually sort of mandated to have at least 60% of our lending has to be in, what we call our mission areas, right? So whether that's supporting women, supporting rural areas, supporting low to moderate income communities or immigrant and refugees, whatever it is that, the institution's mission focus is, we have to, do lending at least 60%, or else we will lose our CDFI designation. So it's not, so we're legally bound by that, but it's also, our DNA, right? And for us, mission supportive deposits are crucial. If you think about where self-help has many of its branches, we tend to be in low to moderate income communities. And so our retail branches really can't support the deposit levels that we need to do the type of lending that we do. So that's why we depend on what we call mission supportive depositors. And these are people who might live in Utah or Wyoming, but who care about our mission and want to place their place their funds with us because it allows, aligns with their mission or values. We like to say, if you care where your money sleeps at night, put it in a mission-focused organization.
I
And
appreciate that. And Manny, I see your hand up. Like, chime in.
Yeah, thank you. On a simplistic level, the relationship value that a smaller bank brings, it's immense. And why I say that is, if you're familiar with the words PPP, when those came out in back in the pandemic, if your only sole relationship was through a mega bank, especially not one with a handshake involving you and the banker, good luck getting your phone call answered and getting any type of service, or you're gonna be stuck in a departmentalization until you get to something, and by that point, the PPP round one may have already been gone. On a simple level, one of the biggest advantages of, if you don't, and alluding to Kathy's point, if you don't need this type of complex banking or heavy international, and which now some smaller banks can support, um, just having that relationship with a banker, more in preparation versus needing. You don't, as day-to-day bankers, we don't just want you in the branch when you need something. We're here for you when you need to prepare for something. Of course, PPP, we know it was very fast. No, even the bankers themselves didn't know exactly how the mechanics work in the beginning, because the SBA and the Fed just threw this new product that we had to launch within weeks. That's incredibly hard in any industry. But for more conventional lending, or just structuring of depository accounts, we want to have that conversation with you, and want to hear those questions. Of, hey, how do I best structure this, versus, hey, I can't get to no one, or there's so many departments that I can't really get my questions answered in one visit, and I have to set an appointment way far out. Um, so the person to person relationship, banking piece on the MDI, mission driven, small community bank, it's incredibly helpful.
I appreciate that. And Manny, while I have you, I really want to ask you this question that came from Bernice. I think it's really timely. As you know, everybody, that we have just hit the 20th anniversary since Hurricane Katrina. And we talk about, and we want to remember that community, what happened to them, and how they continue to rebuild. Bernice asked a question about Beneficial State Bank. How has Beneficial State Bank responded in disaster areas when we experience climate disasters or other type of disasters?
Yeah, no, great question. And I did see it beforehand. We're a state charter West Coast bank, meaning that we predominantly service California, Oregon, and Washington. And we know that at the beginning of this year, we had the Altadena fires right in Southern California, which impacted a ton of individuals. And one of our responses was to set up a fund on the bank side to ensure that we can have some sort of support to deploy monies, or if we've identified a client in that area, maybe a waiver of some sort, or simply have that conversation. But yes, we did respond with, at least for the Altadena, which is the latest that we had on our end. We did have an emergency fund structure on our end. That said, the hardest part of the fires in Southern California was actually deploying the funds, because there was so much support that we did, being one thing is setting up the fund, the other thing is being intentional and deploying it where it best can be of use. We even had, we're a big nonprofit banking bank, so uh, a lot of our clients set up funds themselves. So one of the things that we did, which many of our banks do, is we have granting opportunities. What we did is we opened it up for general support, which can also support disasters, not just in this latest, but if the organization is assisting with any type of disaster, you can apply for a sponsorship from us for just general support. I feel like that widens up the doors for the beneficiaries of these sponsorships to be able to assist to disasters in their own way. And of course, on the bank side, we did our own. which we it mostly assisted existing clients, but we opened the doors just like PPP. We opened the doors to non-clients as well. Um, I'll leave it there.
No, I appreciate that. And so I see Bernice's response to you. What I want to tell everybody is that you may not have this banking in your community, but you now have heard what you should be demanding of your financial institutions, pushing them to be able to do better. So please take heart with that and use these opportunities as a tool to say, this is what you want to see, right, when it comes to your institution. And then also, hopefully, these banks may expand their footprint and be in your community. And so before I go to my next question, I want to pass it to Kevin.
Thanks. I just wanted to add too, I agree with you. A couple things. One, in order for us to be in position to support communities, we need the customers. We need to have those banking relationships that empowers us and puts us in position to deploy resources in ways, especially when there are crises in place that we haven't expected. The second thing that I think we can do is it's not only when the crisis happens that we're reacting, it's really the proactivity in the relationships, in the community investment that really puts us in the best position to respond when a crisis happens. If we've got the relationships, we've got the investment, and we've already started that process or that relationship, then it's easier to deploy resources when a crisis unfortunately happens. And so just those two thoughts.
I appreciate you chiming in with that. What I'd like to do, Kimberly, I want to ask you this question that I saw in the chat. Self-help has been around for decades, focusing on the home ownership and families who have been locked out of traditional lending. What are some of the biggest barriers that still prevent Black and Latino families from buying homes even today that you've seen?
It's still it's the cash to close. We find that a lot of, and down payments, right? And so that's why we developed the Equity Boost program so that we actually loan, I think up to 105% or 110% of the loan. So let's say, a mortgage is $200,000, we'll loan like $210,000 to cover the closing costs and all of that, right? Credit score. So we actually lowered the credit score requirement to 580. Now we know that is not the best credit score to have. So we also provide financial counseling. We partner with, HUD certified agencies to, work with borrowers, to help improve their credit, so that they can get a better, interest rate. And increase their credit score. But we also work programs that provide subsidies, right? So we are one of the preferred lenders for the Choose to Own program. And those are folks who can use their Section 8 voucher to actually purchase a home. So we're a lender for that. And we work with several different organizations, the City of Chicago, Cook County, State of Illinois, that also have subsidies for first-time home buyers, and they can layer all of that on top of our mortgage prices. So those are kind of the ways that we're trying to address that gap, is through cash to close, because we know that's a barrier, and credit score.
I appreciate that. And so we have because of time, I'm going to ask two more questions, and then for everybody else, I want to make sure that we follow up with your questions. And so we've copied them all down, and as we send out what's to come, we hope to be able to have some like responses for you to make sure that you know that we've seen it, your question. And so Victor, I want to ask you this question, right? I think is really important. You meant when talking about the Community Reinvestment Act, right? Like, many people don't know, may not understand what that means. Could you share a little bit more detail of what that is and why it's so important?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a lot of discussion about it recently since it's been around for quite a few years as a piece of legislation that makes sure that banks are reinvesting their money back into the communities that we do business in and meeting the needs, the credit needs of the community, especially for LMI individuals, areas, and also small businesses. So this is a piece of legislation that regulates banks, making sure that we're providing lending, investments in the form of community investments, but also grants and also volunteer services back into those communities. And it's a we've gone through a few years of trying to modernize CRA, and we've been very supportive as a bank and a CDFI to make sure that the changes in CRA regulation are reflective of the needs of today, especially around making sure that there's CRA components to address the needs of individuals of color, because race and ethnicity was not part of CRA. It was mostly income based. And so it's very important to help support CRA because it makes sure that banks are investing back into our communities that we do business in. The recent changes that was being proposed for CRA modernization, unfortunately, got rescinded, and we're now back to square one, going back to CRA regulation that was in effect since 1995. And so CRA is important for the community because you can go back and talk to banks about CRA. Talk to a local CRA officer if you're interested in looking at how they're investing back into the communities with grants, with sponsorships. What are they doing in terms of lending back into LMI communities and supporting small businesses? This is where you could have a discussion with your local CRA officer on what's your local bank doing in supporting your local communities. So it's a great discussion point.
Thank you. And Kevin, I want to ask you this final question, and then we'll leave it to take a pledge. You wear a lot of hats, right? And importantly so. How has your experience like of understanding government and community help you develop a better bank?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, I think, I am an elected official, and so you see the range of need in our community. And when you understand what it means for our residents who are perhaps the most challenged, you know that there's more that we can do. And where I see I'm sorry, coming into the bank here, my office, where you see there's more, where you see the opportunity to build a product that serves them, you get exposed to really just every aspect, every need, and you also know where the deficiencies are in government. There's a lot that government does to provide services and social service support and resources, but when we can build a product that complements those areas and complements that for our residents, then you can have a pathway to economic mobility for our residents. And that to me is where the synergy really connects. And I see it all the time. And even when you think about someone who's in a high interest paying car loan, and that car gets them to work, gets their kids to school, it sort of is, their life is built around that. But imagine if something goes wrong with that car and they don't have the funds to fix it. And so getting them into a market rate interest, it's not a lower interest rate, it's just better. It matches the market. Getting them into something like that can be all the difference between having a savings cushion or being able to save for a home, or a number of things that can change the trajectory of their economic mobility. And it's knowing that and understanding that it gives us all that ability to create services that serve people.
Thank you. And with that, I want to pass it to Kathy. Let's talk about the pledge.
Yeah, so I think both Hip Hop Caucus and Green America have separate pledges. Our pledge is basically to align your money with your values in banking specifically. A number of Green Americans have already done that, but in case you haven't, here's our pledge. So we've created these pledges to help people like make a conscious commitment that they're going to do this. And then anyone who fills out this pledge form, we are going to have action hours to actually support people in following through with it, because it's a few steps to move your money to a new bank, especially if you have automatic deposits and withdrawals coming out. So we do have a 10 steps to break up with your mega bank campaign, and we'll go through that in our action hours. But I had the link for both pledges is in the chat, and we will work with helping you follow through. So if you want to just open one or both of those links right now and take those pledges, help yourself, have at it.
And I will add here, like when we talk about the Bank Black and Green campaign and this pledge, we are working with minority depository institutions who have said that we will not finance the fossil fuel industry or mass incarceration, things that harm our community. And so far, we had a goal of saying that we want to get commitments of $200 million And we have already hit $40 million from people who are saying that they're willing to put their money into institutions who do not finance these harmful things. So if you want to help send this message, we're not saying you move your money today, but if you believe in this cause of saying like we want our banks to do better, let's show them how much we'd be willing to be able to put into these institutions.
Yeah. Yeah, so feel free to go ahead and just open one or both of those links and fill out your information, and we will be following up with people to help them move their money. We'll have action hours, and we also work with an organization called This Is What We Did. They have volunteers who staff office hours that you can contact with any questions about moving your money, and they're very experienced. They've gotten whatever the question is, they've probably gotten it. So we'll be working with them as well to make sure and answer any questions and just help people make this switch.
Thank you all for joining, and we will make sure that after this, if you register, we'll make sure that you get access to the recording and the slides, and hope to be able to answer even more questions for y'all. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. All right. And I do have to hop to the next call. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm sure a lot of us do. So we'll go ahead and end this. Thank you so much, Stefan.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.